Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? So I'm getting a little bit of a late start today to this vlog. It is currently, let's see what time it is. It is 7:26 p.m. My husband just got home probably about 5 minutes ago. I just grabbed some coffee and a candle, and I have my wick trimmer and I have my lighter. Yeah, so I'm getting started on this a little bit late. Alex just got home. He had a meeting after work tonight that he had to go to. So he just got back from that, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to vlog, and he's going to relax for a little bit. And then when I get done vlogging, we're going to watch some TV or something like that. About a half an hour ago, I was sitting here in front of the computer, and I was like getting these videos up and stuff today that I filmed today, and my head started hurting a little bit. Now, before everybody starts worrying and diagnosing me in the comment section below, I just want to say, first of all, I was like, you know what? I haven't had any coffee today. I haven't had any caffeine today. I think that might be why sometimes when I sit down here, I do get headaches, because I haven't, like, usually I wait. If I don't leave the house, if I go with Caroline or something like that, I get a coffee. But if I don't leave the house, typically, I don't have a cup of coffee until I sit down to start vlogging. So I don't know, maybe it's the getting caffeine late in the day. Maybe that's why when I start vlogging, my headache starts going away. It could just be caffeine, you know? But I went in the kitchen and I got this cup of coffee and I looked out the window, and it is like literally like, it's like clear skies, and then it's just like black skies. Like it is gonna downpour rain. Well, I'm very, very sensitive to like barometric pressure and rainstorms and stuff like that. So I don't know. So I'm hoping that it's not a bad headache. It's just a little bit of like a headache. So I'm hoping it goes away here in just a little bit. So yeah, I've been busy today. I've been busy doing, I don't know. I filmed a very long drama video today. I think it was like 50 minutes long, which is starting to become average for me. But there were like a lot of things that I had to look into it first. And so I had started looking into it last night. But then today I was like, okay, I got to kind of get this in some kind of order to film it. I've been sitting down here. The last 2 days I've sat here and filmed my drama videos with Alex's ring light that's back there now. I've been putting it in front of me, and I've been filming it with the ring light. People seem to like it with the ring light. I could put the ring light on for the vlog. It's just that the ring light is really, really bright. And so it's kind of hard to look into. If you watch my drama videos, I'm kind of squinting a little bit. It's like literally like looking in the sun. So anyway, I had to like get stuff together ready for that video. And then there was like a phone call that I had to take earlier today too. So I didn't get to I wanted to make videos on all my channels today, and I actually didn't get into, after my drama video, to my other videos until later. And then I went outside and I checked on the mail, and I had all these packages. I had like 2 or 3 packages in the mailbox, 2 boxes on the doorstep, and so they were all candle waxes. Well, no, that's not true. 4 of them were, 3 or, how many bags or boxes did I have now? I don't even know. I think like 3 or 4 of them were candle waxes, and 1 was wildflower seed. So I was excited about that. But anyway, so I did a haul of that on my Peter Does Stuff channel, and then I've been wanting to make a video for my Peter Watches TV channel about ghosts. It's interesting because for my Peter Watches TV channel, I kind of feel like I either have to have watched, I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like I either have had to have watched the entire show, like its entirety, to like react to it. And then, in all honesty, by the time I get done with a show, especially if it's like something that Alex and I watch like every week, like White Lotus, by the time that I'm done with it, like Grotesquerie was the same way. I think it's still on my list. By the Ryan Murphy show, Grotesquerie, that had Niecy Nash in it. By the time I'm done with it, I think there's a lot that I've forgotten about the show, and so I'm like, I don't think people probably, you know, would really care. I think whatever show Alex and I start next that comes out, if it's like another American Horror Story or something like that, I'll probably do like weekly reactions to it. Then the other thing is that I said I was going to do the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Last week I forgot to do it. Was it last week I forgot to do it? I think it was last week I forgot to do it, and we haven't watched this week's yet, so we'll probably watch that tonight. So that might be my video tomorrow. But anyway, on my Peter Watches TV channel, if I'm just like randomly watching stuff like RuPaul's Drag Race or like Ghosts that I watch like every night, I watch like an episode or 2 every night because it calms me down so much, I kind of feel like those aren't the kind of videos that people want to see on that channel. I don't know why. I get in my head about it. It's stupid. But I kind of think like those aren't the kind of videos that people want, you know, on that channel. Like they want to see like a true crime documentary and then me react to it, or like a movie and me react to it. So last night I was like watching a show, and I was like, I love this show so much. I was like, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about why everybody should watch this show. So that was the video that I made today. I'm sure it won't get tons of views, but I loved talking about it. I just love talking about TV anyway. I love talking about books as well, as you know. And I also have a BookTube channel, and I also have a TV channel. And I know that over here, so somebody commented on my video last night. It was very nicely said, but they just said, like, I've been talking so much about books lately, which I have. Over here, I seem to talk about the things that I get excited about, right? And I have been reading so much lately. I think, as you guys know, if you watch us regularly, I've been talking so much about the books I'm reading. Yesterday, I went in heavy and was talking about all of the post-apocalyptic books and reading the titles of it and all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because back in the day when I would go in and talk a half an hour about a TV show, there would be a couple people that would be like, Peter, you talk so much about TV shows over here, you know? And that was even before I had my Peter Watches TV channel. And then the thing is, like, people will say, why don't you save this for your Peter Watches TV channel? Well, me having an opinion about one episode of, like, Beverly Hills, like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I don't know that, like, that makes for a whole video. Maybe I need to stop thinking that way and just, you know, I don't know. I just think that most people probably wouldn't be that interested in it. But maybe they would. Maybe I just need to start doing that. By the way, if you watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Garcelle came out today and said she's leaving the show. She said it wasn't goodbye. She said she'll see you later. She said it was her son's, like, last year of high school, and it kind of seemed like there was things she wasn't saying on there. I don't know. But anyway, when I would talk about shows a lot over here, people would say, oh my God, some people would say. Some people said they liked it. Other people would say, you talk so much about TV shows. I could talk about TV shows 24 hours a day, you know, in all honesty. And, but now I'm, like, probably reading more, in all honesty, than I am watching TV. It was interesting because last night, Tanya texted me really, really late. She, like, woke up and she had a dream that I got a dog last night. She's like, I can't go back to sleep. She's like, are you awake? And I was sitting there, I was reading Maximum Ride. Where are my glasses? What time did she call? She texted me. She texted me last night at, she said, can't sleep, had a dream you got a dog. And that was at 4:36 a.m. And I was sitting there reading. And she said, I was dreaming you got a dog. But she was like, what are you doing? Or what are you watching? And I said, I'm reading. And I said, are you in bed or are you downstairs on the couch? And she said, on the couch. And so I called her and we talked for like 45 minutes. And it was funny because I was telling her, I was like, I don't even get to my shows until, 4:30, and I hadn't even started my shows yet. I was reading so much. I know I've been talking a lot about books over here lately. Books and TV shows, in all honesty, are kind of like my life. Like, other than Alex and I doing stuff together, or me going to a meeting with Tanya on a Tuesday night, which, by the way, did not work out tonight. She had stuff going on today, and she was like, this is not a great night. So that did not work out tonight. Which, in all honesty, kind of worked out better for me anyway, because I got started so late. And Alex also had a meeting. He said he would, like, come home after, like, early in the meeting and take me to Tanya's if I needed him to. But I was like, I can just take an Uber if I need to do that. But anyway, we kind of agreed on that. So, what was I saying? But anyway, yeah, I know, like, I'm talking so much about, but, like, other than, like, doing something with Tanya or, you know, going to brunch with Alex or whatever, or going to Cousin Fun Day with Caroline, in all honesty, my life, this is kind of what my life looks like. Whoever left the comment, it was really, really nice. Here, you know what? I'm going to pull up my vlog and I will read you the comment because it was really nice. They said, don't you have a channel for talking about books? I was like, I do have a channel for talking about books. It's called Peter Likes Books. But, you know, other than me, like, getting up and filming videos, there's not tons. I don't tell stories about dogs anymore. You know, not much goes on with the HOA, although we got an email today, which I'll tell you guys about. And so it's like I get up. I don't even drink coffee, you know, usually before I start filming. I film my videos. I have a list that I go by. Then Alex comes home. Then he relaxes while I'm, like, vlogging or finishing up my vlog. Then I get my vlog up. Then we watch a TV show or two, or we don't, you know, then I take a nap, and then I get up and I read and I watch. I don't know what to say. Like, my life is like, I have a boring life. I really do. I love it. I love my life, you know. In my prayers every night, it's interesting because I always get to this point, you know, years and years and years ago, if you're a spiritual person, you'll probably get this. I am a believer in prayer, and I'm a believer in having some kind of conscious contact on a regular basis with my higher power. I pray in the morning when I get up and do all that stuff. But late at night, it seems to be this like extravagant effort to pray, which to me, my prayers, I mean, there are some prayers that I say like every night I do. This is probably boring to people, but like every night I say the Lord's Prayer. I say the Serenity Prayer. I say some other prayers, some recovery prayers. And then I go through and I just kind of like, you know, I say all the things I'm grateful for and all the people. I say YouTube on there. I say my health, my sobriety, or my life, my health, and my sobriety. The dogs, you know, Pee Pee Tucker and Boo. Alex and our marriage. I talk about the house and the home, having, you know, food and water. I go through all of it. But then I just kind of like talk to my higher power and just kind of have a conscious conversation with it. The whole thing probably takes maybe 5 or 6 minutes, in all honesty, okay? And I like to do it outside because I just feel a little bit more connected to God that way. But lately, I've been like, I'll be sitting in the chair and I'll be like, you need to go pray before you like really get into this book or you watch our shows. I try to kind of like do it before that usually. And then I'll be like, oh, but I don't want to go outside. I don't want to do it. Like, it's so bad. It's like, you don't have 5 minutes to have some spiritual foundation in your life, you know? And so I go outside, and I always feel better after I do it. You know, I always feel like more connected to my higher power, and it's not even just about that, in all honesty. It's kind of like, you know, I always go through the day, and I say specific things that I'm grateful for that have happened that day. It can be something very small, like, I always like, you know, I go through each person, you know, like Caroline, talk about how grateful I am for her, like coming and getting me, or Alex and our marriage, our love for, I mean, I go through each thing, but then it can be very small things, you know, like, oh, I'm grateful I got to talk to my neighbors today, or, you know, that I got to try a new candle wax, to that I had food to eat. It's just all this different stuff I go through, right? I think part of why I feel good after it is not just, I mean, it's something you could do and not be a spiritual person. You know, you wouldn't have to be a spiritual person to do that. You could just make a list of things you're happy about or grateful for. But on the flip side of it, it makes my day feel not even like productive. I used to kind of like measure my day by being productive. It's not even so much about that as it is, I just feel like, wow, like I have a lot. It reminds me that I have a lot to be grateful for. It just gives me a different kind of feeling. It gives me a lot of calm and peace. But, you know, when I look back on my life, there have been periods in my life where I just wasn't connected at all to my higher power. Long periods of time where I didn't pray and stuff, especially the 4 years that I wasn't going to meetings and whatever. I did kind of like, what's it called, 11th hour prayers or whatever, where, like, you know, if something happened, I'd be like, oh God, please, you know. But I wasn't like praying on a regular basis. And so when I came back in to the rooms of recovery and started going to meetings again, you know, was when I, on a regular basis, started hearing people talk about spirituality. I think there's like this misconception that 12-step programs are very like cultish, biblical, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I have friends of mine that have all different kinds of belief systems in 12-step meetings. I have friends of mine that will not close with the Lord's Prayer. It's like they, you know, I don't really get ate up with the words of prayers unless it's something that I just absolutely don't, like I can't stand by. But I don't get ate up with all of that kind of stuff. But I have friends of mine that are just like, no, I'm not going to say it. You know, like they won't, like they'll hold hands, but they won't say the prayer and things like that. I have a lot of agnostic friends in recovery. You know, the basic text and things like that of any 12-step program, there is like leanings towards, you know, like a Christian ideology. There just is. Because I think that's when it was written. I think that's where the majority of people were of that belief. But it's expanded and it's grown over time. You know, it's like when I first went to this meeting way back in the day, I remember this meeting was like on Friday nights. Everybody got, you know, dressed up for it and stuff. It was it doesn't exist anymore. It was at the Chevy Union Hall downtown. And that's the story where I talk about how I was sitting there and they were just like, God this and God that. I was like, God, please, just like, enough of this God talk, you know? And I got up and I went to the back of the room and lit a cigarette. This woman came back there. I share this story a lot, actually. And she was like, why'd you leave the meeting? And I was like, well, first of all, she came up and I like put my hand out to shake her hand. She was like, baby, we hug at these meetings. And so she gave me a big hug. And I mean, I was probably 36 days sober or something. It was right after I got out of treatment. I don't know how long after that. But anyway, I can remember it because it was cold. I can see in snow when I'm walking outside there. But anyway, she's like, why'd you leave the meeting? And I said, I just was getting tired of all the God talk. And she's like, is that what you... I can remember this meeting because it was in... The union hall had all these tables where like people would eat lunch, like on their breaks from work. And this, I can remember looking over, it was this huge room. There was probably 60 to 100 people in this meeting, which was a huge meeting at that time. Still is a big meeting. And there was like smoke, like halfway. I mean, you could just see the layer of smoke. You know, there's not around here. I don't know if there are other places there are, but there aren't smoking meetings anymore. Maybe if they're outside, because there's a lot of outside meetings like in Florida and stuff like that. But there's no inside smoking meetings. You can't vape or smoke cigarettes inside meetings anymore. The last time that you could, that I remember you could smoke in a meeting, because one of my jobs was cleaning up ashtrays, because you have like monthly jobs that you can be of service for. I was cleaning up ashtrays. I can remember dumping the ashtrays out and cleaning them off in the sink and stuff like that. Cleaning, we had glass coffee mugs there, but it was at my home group. And so it was at an old place that we used to do it at. And then people would smoke, you know, during the meetings. And then it was brought up that, because you do everything like by a group vote. And then people were like, they didn't want people smoking during meetings anymore. And so then it was, they changed it to, you could smoke inside that was at a union hall too. You could smoke inside the union hall, but it also had 3 doors on it. The doors were open, the windows were open. I mean, even in the winter, it was hot in there. This was a different place. You could smoke in there until the meeting started. And I can remember, Tony and I used to laugh about this, that as soon as, I mean, we would get there like 15, 20 minutes early, and some of these guys would just be like, down, you know, I mean, they were like, put 3, 4 cigarettes down in like 10 minutes, you know? And like as soon as the meeting started, you know, when they would like be like, okay, like, you know, we're gonna start this meeting, and then like everybody would just be like, oh, they put their cigarettes out. These old guys, these old timers, you know. But then when we moved from that place where it was to where it is now, we're in a church now. And so that was when they decided that meeting was gonna be a non-smoking meeting. I don't even know when that was. That was probably, well, when I came back to going to meetings, it had already moved. Had it moved before I stopped going to meetings? I mean, it's probably 15 years, maybe 15, 20 years now. No, it hasn't been 20 years. I'm trying to think of my friend. How long would she have? She went back out, but how long would she have? Oh, she'd probably have 15 years ago. Probably 15 years ago. They just like smoking me and stopped. When I got sober, I used to go to this funeral home. Have I told this story before? I think I have. When I first got sober, I went to this funeral home for meetings. There's still meetings there at this funeral home, but I can remember because it was like it would split. It was on a Wednesday night, and it was interesting because years later I found out that a friend of mine, his dad doesn't own it anymore because it's changed names and everything like that. But his dad owned the funeral home, and he was asking me something about like, he had nothing to do with like recovery. He was asking me like where I went to meetings and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I go to this meeting and whatever. And he's like, did you ever go, I get to this meeting at this funeral home. I go, oh my God, because we used to call it the funeral home meeting. And I said, oh my God, yeah, when I first got sober, I went there for like the first 2 years. And do you remember when I'm telling the stories about like, when people ask me about cravings? And I'll say like people, like now we do this thing in meetings where, I mean, it's so like programmed out and stuff like that, that like on the back of like, so we have a list of meetings you can get. It's like a book of meetings that will show every meeting in Indianapolis. Every city probably has it. But anyway, and they're usually free at meetings, or if you go to like the service office, you can like pay like, they're like 50 cents or something like that. They're like just these paper little pamphlet things. But on the back of them, it has like, it'll say like name and phone number. Now when you go to a meeting, like if you're like a man or a woman that you're new to a meeting, obviously, new to a meeting, and then like if you're a man, then like they'll pass it around, like a piece of paper that will say like newcomer list, and then you put your name on it. So like I would put like Peter, if you're willing to like take calls from like a newcomer, and then like all the men do it for the men and all the women do it for the women, and you pass it around, and then everybody signs it with their phone number on it if you're willing to take calls for like a newcomer. Back when I got sober, we didn't do that stuff. Like you had to ask people for their number. It's a program of attraction, not promotion. That's one of the sayings. It's like, so we just share our stories, and if people are attracted to it, to that way of living or to the story, then they can ask for help or whatever. Part of that's why we have to ask for sponsors. They don't just, come up to us and stuff like that. I mean, there's times where people will say this person's going to sponsor you, but then you still have to be the one to be like, reach out. It's like one of the reasons why, I don't think I talk a lot about this, but like in recovery, I mean, my sponsor now, like most of my sponsors, like back in the day, like call me up and stuff like that. But like starting off, you're really supposed to call your sponsor. Like you're supposed to be the one to like reach out and do all that kind of stuff. You're supposed to be the one to go up to somebody, ask them to be your sponsor. There's no like, this is where it's always interesting to me when it gets compared to like a cult. I'm like, it's the only cult that they'll tell you like, if try what we have to offer. If you don't like it, we'll happily refund your misery. It's like nobody's forcing you to come except for maybe a judge, and that's your own fault, So it's like nobody's forcing anybody to go to meetings. I mean, you don't have to go, Nobody's going to be like, please come back. I've never seen that happen in a meeting where people, I can remember when I got sober, people would say, keep coming back. And it pissed me off. I was like, why are they telling me to come back? Because it was like basically, like I'd be done sharing and they go, keep coming back. And what I found out later was that meant I didn't get it yet. I didn't understand it, And so anyway, but I mean, it's a slogan. It's a 12-step slogan. But so when I first got sober, if you wanted people's numbers, you had to like go up to people and ask them for their number or say something. And I can remember at that meeting, that funeral home meeting, it was like one of the first times I went, I remember this one guy, he was like this biker guy, and he had real long hair. Isn't it so weird how you remember certain things? I remember he had really long, like jet black hair, and it was like parted down the middle. He had this like biker vest on with like a t-shirt, which is weird now I think about it because it was like in the winter time. Super nice, very soft spoken. And I remember he gave me, I think he's the one that gave me like this business card that was specifically made. It had like the recovery symbol on it, and then he had like his first name and last initial and then his phone number. And that was all it was. It was like, I've met a lot of people since then that have like business cards just for like people in recovery. But anyway, he gave me that. But then a lot of other people gave me like scraps out of a checkbook with their name written on the back of it and stuff like that. He was really, really nice. I remember calling him one time, and he was like so soft on the phone. He was like really, really sweet. But anyway, I remember I sat in a meeting. It was like one of the first times I was there, and I was really struggling. And I was like, I think I said in my share, like, all I shared was like, I could just really use some numbers. And so after that, people came up to me with numbers and gave it to me. So when I talk about like the cravings early on, where I had like the numbers of my dealers next to me, and I'd be like, if I can just make it to this time, then I can call on these dealers, or I can walk down the liquor store. I had a liquor store that was like a block from me. And, but during that time, like that half an hour time or whatever, I'd like call all these numbers. I had always scraps of paper on the counter, and I would just call them and call them and call them until I got a hold of somebody. And then they'd be like, what's going on? And I'd be like, I'm struggling. Like I'm wanting to drink. I want to get high. And they'd be like, okay. Oh, Caroline just texted me. Is she changing the time? Let me turn down the volume on this. That happened during my video earlier too. That's where people get confused and they say, I thought you had your notifications turned off on my phone. Did you hear my phone go off? That was my computer. What did Caroline say? She said 145. She said 2 originally, but now she's saying 145. That's fine. That works out better actually. So, I like telling these stories. I don't really tell a lot of these old stories. These are the things that I really enjoy. By the way, one person commented they're doing the recovery books with me. I appreciate it. Thank you. I actually, we'll get to this in a second, but last night I finished the 3rd James Patterson book finally, Big Bad Wolf. It was not good. I gave it the worst rating. I think I gave it 2 stars. It was not good. But then I started Tweak by Nick Sheff, which is, his dad wrote Beautiful Boy, and it's his descent into methamphetamine addiction. I've never read it before. I'm not that far into it. It was interesting because when I started it, I didn't really know what to expect. And it's about him, like he's been sober for a while. He talks about like his sponsor in there, and then he meets this girl that he used to like date and party with back in the day, like when he was in high school. And they like start partying. That's like how the book starts, and he relapses. But anyway, you know what? I want to light this candle before I get in the story anymore, because I'm like feeling very spiritual telling the story. I'm loving this. Okay, so this candle, I don't know if this is mine or my husband's or if somebody sent it to me. Oh, I've shown this before. This is Guy Fawkes, California, crushed pineapple. I'm like running out of like any kind of winter or fallish scent. So we're now, oh, it smells like cologne. We're now down to crushed pineapple for summer. I haven't ordered any new candles yet. Candle waxes I have. I'm very disappointed in the candle waxes. And look at this lid on here. It's like this wood lid. Isn't that cool? I'm very disappointed in the candle waxes that I've bought so far from Etsy. And the ones I got today that I opened did not smell good at all. So I'm a little disappointed in all of that. It's pretty, doesn't it? Like the black canister. So I'm a little disappointed in all of that. But anyway, I'm going to keep on trying them. I got more to try tonight. So, did I already share? These are my new reading glasses. They're like the bigger ones. I like them. I like the bigger ones, I think, than this. I had the black ones. So this is like the regular size. There's much of a difference. Do you see? Oh, there is kind of a bit difference. These are blue, though. They're not black. Can you see they're blue? Anyway, this is still the D28s. But these are the wides. And these are just the regular ones. Which ones do you guys like better? Here, look. These are the small ones. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I do like the small ones better. These kind of feel like they fall down in my nose a little bit. I like them a little bit. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But, stupid. So, okay, this funeral home. Let's get back to that story. So, when I didn't know that talking about smoking meetings was going to lead me to talking about all these meetings from the past. But anyway, oh God, I'm still talking about the Chrysler Union Hall meeting. I haven't got to that story yet. Okay, so let's start here. The funeral home meeting, it was split up into smoking and non-smoking. I always thought this was so hilarious. I don't know why. But, like, funeral homes are different a little bit today. Like, newer ones, nicer ones, they're massive and stuff like that. But do you remember back in the day where they would, like, separate rooms with, like, those things they would pull? I don't know what they're called. They're like, they're like blinds, but you pull them across. Do you know what I mean? To separate rooms. They would do it in, like, school rooms, too. Do you remember that? So they would pull them to separate the rooms of the funeral home. But, like, one room we would sit in, and, like, everybody was smoking. It's just crazy to me to even think that we smoked, like, in meetings back in the day. And then the next room, could you smoke in funeral homes back in the day? You must have been able to if we could smoke in there. And then on the other side, was, like, non-smoking. But we're literally, like, there's, like, this partition. That's what maybe it's called, partition in between us. But anyway, so I went to that meeting for a long time. It's funny how many people, like, I run into from, like, 30 years ago. And they'll be like, don't I know you from somewhere? And I'm like, we'll figure out that we know each other from recovery. And they'll be like, what meeting did we used to go to? And then we figure out it's from that funeral home meeting. Like, that was kind of like a hot meeting back in the day. Like, everybody went to that meeting. I mean, it was like, I think it was on, like, well, they have several meetings a week now. But back then, they only had, like, a Wednesday night meeting. But anyway, I found out years later that at the time that I went to it, my friend's dad and his, like, uncle owned it, and there was, like, their grandfather or somebody was, like, an alcoholic, and so they, like, had the meetings there to, like, give back, and because whoever it was that got, somebody in their family had gotten sober, and so they, like, helped host the meetings there. But interesting thing, if you guys don't know this, about 12-step meetings, so they're fully self-supporting. So, like, when we get, like, the church that we have the meeting in, they would probably say, just have the meeting here. You can have the meeting here and you don't have to pay us anything. But that's not how it works in 12-step meetings. Like, you have, first of all, they have to be sanctioned meetings. They have to be, like, you have to, like, there's a process to opening a meeting and starting a meeting. And then, and there's a difference between a meeting and a group, too. Like, my home group is a group, like a home group, like a group. Like, you have a representative, and then there's a meeting that might meet, like, 5 days a week. That's just a meeting. And a meeting, a group is a meeting, but a meeting doesn't have to be a group. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Okay. If you're interested in all this, you can look it up online. It's actually very interesting. I mean, there's archives and how they wrote all this kind of stuff. And the way they did, the reason why they did all this was so that there was never any hierarchy of governing of the 12-step. And there's no person that's more important than the next. Like, there's not one person that runs everything. It's all done by voting, unanimous voting, and things like that. So, what was I talking about? Oh, so, like, okay, the church will tell us, like, how much we have to pay in rent, and then we take donations. And so, like, there's weekly donation. They pass the basket, and so nobody's forced to do it, you know, whatever. But then from the donations, they'll do, like, what's called a split. So I've been in this position. It's like the secretary does it, of the group. It could be a secretary of a meeting, too. So anyway, it gets very confusing. But anyway, so then you take a split. And then the split, you donate, like, you usually do, like, 30, 30, 30, right? or some people do it like in quarters. But like if you do it in quarters, like 25% goes maybe like back into the meeting, like for like coffee and things like that. And then the camera stopped. And then another 25% goes to like rent for the month because we pay rent. And then another 25% goes to like donations to like who oversees like the group and stuff like that. And then for like pamphlets and literature and things like that. So anyway, there's a way that they break all that down. Whatever. And there's like even sheets that some meetings have where it'll say like if you get like $26 in donations, how you break it all down. It's very cool how they do it. So anyway, so that's why we say they're fully self-supporting. That way, if the church tomorrow said to us, like, I mean, if this happened, we would say, we would have to take a vote, but then we would say we were going to move. If they said, okay, tomorrow, like every meeting has to be started with the word Jesus Christ, we would, like, they would take a vote on that. But we would say we rent from you. Like, you can't tell us what we're going to do in our meetings. Does that make sense? So, but it's fully self-supporting. There's not like a president of a 12-step program. There's nothing like that. There's like people that chair meetings and are secretary, but they're voted on by the group. And then those people serve a term, and there are certain terms for certain positions, like 6 months, 2 years, a year, 3 years, things like that. There's certain terms. And then you're supposed to like have like a position, and then like in like year 2 of being sober, you have like another position, and then you move up. So that's kind of like what I did when I got sober. So like when I talk about service and service positions, it's not just like sponsorship, which everybody in recovery, once you have a year or more sobriety time, you sponsor people, but there's like service positions that you do. And so you like, this is probably so boring to people. People are like, go back to the books and the TV shows, please go back and talk about the books and the TV shows. So anyway, but, so like you start off with like, here's the deal, okay? I am not a representative of a 12-step program. It's why I don't say the specific like meetings I go to, 12-step programs. It's why I always say or try to 12-step program. I am not a representative of it. I am just a member. This is just my experience, strength, and hope. My experience, strength, and hope might be completely different than somebody else's. I am not a representative of any 12-step program. That's why I talk like kind of in vagaries when I speak about it. But anyway, it's very interesting. So like, that's why I don't say what the positions are called and things like that. So when you, and there's also, it's a thing called traditions, and there's ways that and I've consulted a lot of people in talking about online, how I can talk about it and things like that. And so traditions are just things that you just like, how you follow and you speak. So you're supposed to like, what you really do is you start off with like a position, like in a meeting, like hosting the meeting, which means like when people come through the door, not every meeting has this either, that somebody's there to say hello. Like our home group has it, but not every meeting has it. And just like welcoming people in, things like that. Then there's like the chairperson. That can be like a year position, a monthly position, three months in a row. It could be 4 people every month that do it and interchange. It could be different. I have chaired meetings for like had to take on a whole year where I was like the chair for the whole year. Chair members are the ones that set up the chairs. They're the ones that start the meeting. They're the ones that do all this stuff. If it's a speaker meeting, they're the ones that typically find the speakers for the meetings, things like that. So that would kind of be like where you would start. Other than like if some meetings have like cleaning coffee mugs or cleaning up afterwards, putting up chairs. Those are kind of like first jobs that you would do. Chairperson is like a voted in position or a volunteer position. And then there's like secretary, there's other positions that you do. There's representatives for different things that you like go to other meetings where it's like, there's district, there's area. I mean, these are huge. It's like a huge deal. It's all organized very, very well. I mean, people say all the time, like, if the world ran like 12-step meetings where we would have so much less difficulty. Not to say that there isn't arguing and fighting that occurs like at district meetings. I mean, I've experienced that before. If you ever want to see some true alcoholics and addicts get on a convention board where they're putting together a convention, it's like everybody has 1,000,001 ideas. It's fun though. It's fun, you know. But anyway, and then you're supposed to hold like a certain position for like a year, and then you step into another position. After that, somebody takes your position, and you move into another position for 2 years. And then you go into, and you're supposed to move up the ranks, kind of. So you've experienced by like year 5 or 6, you've experienced every position that is to be held within a 12-step program. That's how I was taught. That's how we did it back in the day. And then you kind of like rotate back through again. You can do that. And then you can be like a district rep. You can be like these kinds of things. So anyway, it's very interesting how it was all set up all with like the first, you know, like 100 way back in the day. It's very interesting the whole way that it was all organized and stuff like that. The history of 12-step programs is extremely interesting to me. I love it. Just to know that it's survived this long and there hasn't been like infighting and things like that. Now, before 12-step programs came around, I'm getting into even deeper history now, and I can't say the words or the organizations, but there was an organization before the 12-step program anyway, if you guys know, you know what I'm talking about. That's like, they came along. There's been other organizations or other groups that it's just been, there's been like differences of opinions and things like that. And so somebody else will go start something else and do that and whatever. Who is texting me? What? This is somebody I don't ever, speaking of all this is like somebody I never hear from. Who is this? What did they say? Oh, one of my friends just said, if you've never seen Jury Duty, I recommend it. It's so good. I was like, oh my God, I love that show. Anyway, even put the link in it and everything. So, okay, that was the funeral home meeting, which is interesting because the last time that I went by there, God, it was probably over a year ago. Tani came to pick me up, and it was, so I know they have meetings there on other nights now, because it was like a Monday or a Tuesday. And this was like when I was never getting out of the house. I mean, I still don't get out of the house much, but so Tani came and picked me up, and she was like, let's go to the funeral home, because they have meetings like 5 nights a week or something. I said, okay, that's cool. So we went and got our coffee, and we show up there, and so we're like sitting in the parking lot. I think I've shared this story before. I mean, maybe this was 2 years ago. I don't even know. So we're sitting there in the parking lot. There's not one other person in the entire parking lot of this funeral home. I mean, it's like 7:55 at night, right? Not one other, maybe 7:50. Not one other person in this parking lot except for this old car by the back door. This is actually also incidentally the same meeting that my mom like drove around. She would drive around it and not go in because she was so afraid to go into a meeting. I think that's testament to, my mom ended up having 13, almost 14 years before she passed away, but we don't borrow time. Testament to, there are a lot of people that try it and never, end up getting sober. So, or they try it over and over and over again, and then they finally do get sober, either way. And I would talk to my mom later about it, and she'd say, I don't know, I was so scared to walk into a group of people I didn't know, I was like, well, what was different on the day that you got sober? She was like, I had had enough. She was like, I had had enough, and I didn't know what else my options were, and I knew that the meeting existed up the street. So anyway, Tani and I were sitting there. I remember this guy, so we pulled up next to him, because we were parked at the far end of the parking lot, and so she, pulled out, and, she parked next to him, and, so, he got out of his car, and she said, is there a meeting here tonight? And Tani was, and he was like, yeah, there was a meeting. He was kind of a little bit yeah, who are you kind of thing. And he was like, there's a book meeting that starts here. He goes, doesn't get heavy attendance. And he goes, maybe 2 or 3 people. Okay, so a book meeting is where you break out the basic. When I say this, I know I'm going to offend some people. I don't care. I don't love book meetings. Okay, I've gone to so many throughout the world. I mean, listen. When you've been around for 30 years, you kind of know some of this. I mean, I could probably recite the book. Anyway, so, I love, book meetings. I don't love them, but book meetings are important. Let me just say that, okay? Especially, I would say, in early sobriety, to learn the book, to learn what you need. Okay. But when you're getting out of the house once a week to go to a meeting, you're not wanting to go to a book meeting with 3 people, okay? That's not what you're wanting to do. And so, I was wanting to see some people, right? And so, I feel like I'm kind of walking on eggshells saying this. If Tani was here, she'd be like, just tell it how it is. She's like, we don't want to go to the meeting. There's only going to be 3 people there. So when he was like, are you coming? I go, Tani, don't do this to me. She's like, I think there's a meeting down the street. So then that's how we found out that where I vote, there's also a speaker meeting there, 3 times a week. And so we went in there. It was a great lead. And it's walking distance for me. It's walking distance for me that I can go down there. So last summer I said I would maybe walk down there and do that. I didn't really do that a whole lot, but maybe this summer I will. So, yeah. And it was a really fun mix of people. People were so friendly at that meeting and stuff like that. So anyway, that's the funeral home meeting. That meeting, the meeting doesn't exist on the same night because I think it was on Wednesdays. I don't think they have it anymore on Wednesdays. If they do, I haven't been there in forever. And the funeral home's a different name and it doesn't even look the same inside. But So going back to the Chevy Union Hall. So this woman comes up to me and she said, how did I even get started? Oh, I was talking about praying outside last night. So she said, why'd you leave the meeting? And I said, well, first of all, she came up to me and she was like, I went out shaking my hand. She was like, I mean, I was new and, recovery, I didn't know. She said, oh, baby, we hug at this meeting. And so she gave me this big hug. And she's like, why'd you leave the meeting? And I said, because they were talking about God. Because they were. It was like every other word was like, God did this and God did that. And it's interesting, I thought about this later. Well, here, I'll show this in a second about the God thing. Well, I'll share it right now. So later, I would say like a month or two later, I was when I got sober, real resistant to the word God, to spiritual beliefs, to anything. I don't even know why. I never even had any bad experiences with religion growing up at all. But I just was like, it just seemed phony to me. I had never really had any kind of spiritual experience. It just felt like bullshit to me. I mean, the night before I got sober, I did. But I didn't even know that was a spiritual experience at that point. Then I heard this guy give a lead, and he was probably 10 years older than me. He was still, young for like what I was seeing in meetings. And he talked about in his lead, his resistance to God. I wonder where he's at today, because he was from around here. I would run into him every once in a while. I haven't seen him in years. I bet he moved away. But anyway, he shared about, and he was kind of like a garbage pan user like me, would put anything in a system to get high. And so he talked about how this concept of God was so hard for him when he got sober, and that people be like, one of the things they say is like, in the morning, get down on your knees and say help, and in the evening, get down on your knees and say thanks. If you don't know about prayer, that's how you start. I was told that in early recovery. So he was talking about that, and he said even that was a hard concept for him, because he was like, I don't know what I'm praying to. Well, I didn't either. That was why my sponsor and I had to have these heated conversations where he would say, God either is or, and I didn't know. And so, it had to be so specific for me. I had to know what God looked like, how God acted, how God moved. I had to know all that stuff, But I remember listening to this lead, and this guy, maybe not even 10 years older than me, maybe like late 20s. I was 22 at the time, almost 23. And he said, I was so willing to put anything in my body that would change my attitude, change my mood, change my feelings. But I wasn't willing to give God the same chance. And I'll never forget hearing that. Like, that has been one thing. There's probably been 10 things in my recovery that somebody said to me that's stuck with me forever. And I remember him saying that. I was like, I don't even know if I was willing to admit it at the time. But I was like, that is so me. Like, I would eat any pill. I didn't care if it killed me or changed me. I did not care. But I was so resistant to what God could do for me in my life. I was like, no, none of that, So anyway, I'm at the Chevy Union Hall. I don't even know if that meeting exists anymore. I don't think it does. Anyway, I remember there was a lot of hats, a lot of dating going on at that meeting. People were going there to meet, boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff like that. People got dressed up back in the day to go to meetings. But anyway, this woman comes up to me, gives me this hug. She's like, why'd you leave the meeting? And I said, because they were talking all about God. Because they were, like I said. It was like, God this, and God did this for me, and God did that. I just was so turned off by it all. And then she said, is that what you heard? And I said, yeah. I said, because they were saying God this and God that. And she said, baby, take what you like and leave the rest. And I was like, what? She goes, take what you like and leave the rest. If it doesn't apply to you, she said, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. She was like, if it's not something that, basically what she was saying is if it doesn't resonate with you, let it go. Find your own concept of God. Find what works for you. I needed to hear that so much. I have friends of mine that have had such horrific shit done to them in the name of God in their lives, in their childhood, in their marriages. I've had people that have been, friends of mine, people that I know that have been so turned off by God that if they came into a program that told them they had to believe something, they would not be sober today. They would not. So it's interesting to me that there's this ideology that you have to believe in something. Because I can tell you right now, some of my closest friends, okay, would not be a part of a program that had that kind of doctrine to it. But anyway, so, then after that, working with my sponsor, I did my second, my third step, and those are about higher power. Second step is came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And that's just the belief part of it, right? We talk about the wheelbarrow. That's just the part of it, where you believe that maybe there's something bigger out there. Well, that's where the agnosticism came in. Because I always believed there was something out there. I just didn't know what it was. You're not believing in Ouija boards and tarot cards and spirits and ghosts if you don't believe something's out there. What's all that ruled by, right? There's something out there that's otherworldly. You might not know what it is, So the second step wasn't hard for me. The third step was, but I needed to know what that looked like. Like that was so hard for me. The third step is made a decision to turn our life and our will over to the care of God as we understood him or her, or it. And so that was the hard part for me. Made a decision to turn my life and my will. That's what I want to do. My life, not my addiction, my life and my will over to care of God as I understand it, you know? That was hard for me because I was like, okay, first of all, I got to understand what this higher power is, and then I got to turn my whole life over to it, right? I was not ready for it yet, which is when I had the conversation with my sponsor, and he was like, God either is or he isn't, because that's what it says in the basic text. And I was like, he is, because I didn't even know if it was he, she, what, I didn't know. Then he was like, we'll come back to this. So about 2 years sober was when I really went on a spiritual journey. And he was like, what's your biggest fear? Somebody actually just sent me the clip of this today. I cannot believe this. I'm talking about this. They sent me this clip of Sylvia Brown showing that she's a fraud. So my sponsor said, what's your biggest fear? And I said death, which is interesting because it's really not my biggest fear today. I don't even know what my biggest fear today would be. I haven't really thought about that. I mean, I do so many fear inventories and stuff. But anyway, at that time it was. It's weird saying that. I can remember as my mom got older, she'd say, I'm not really as afraid of death anymore. She's like, when you have enough people that have passed in your life, you don't really look at it the same way, which I think is kind of true. It's not like I want to die tomorrow, but I'm also not as afraid of it as I was. I was terrified when I was younger. I don't know. It's a kind of natural passing of things in life. I'm just kind of speaking out of my mind right now, but it's weird because there's almost kind of like a comfort that comes with it. I don't know. Not like I'm ready, because I'm not, but like in understanding it more. So anyway, but he was like, what's your biggest fear? And I said death. And he said, okay, find a book that has something to do with death and read that book, and we're going to start the spiritual journey. And I was like, okay. I was having a lot of conversations with my mom at this point too, because my mom had gotten sober at that point. My mom is somebody that's very read on, was very read on religion and things like that. And so I ended up, I'm sure this greatly disappointed her, I ended up reading The Other Side and Back by Sylvia Brown. And it's basically about what happens on the other side. You make a blueprint for your life with your spirit guides and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. It helped me at the time. That's all I can say. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what that book says except for the blueprint of your life, what deja vu is, that you're exactly where you're supposed to be at your life. I don't know. Some of it resonated with me. Something. It gave me some hope. I think that's why all these years later it devastated me to find out that she was a fraud. I don't know if she 100% was, but... So then I started reading, like, a lot of books. I read books about, like, Native American wisdom. My mom, like, I read parts of, like, Way of the Pilgrim. Some T.S. Eliot stuff that my mom had that she loved. Isn't he the guy that writes a lot about Christianity, I think? I had a recovery Bible that I was reading at the time that, like, breaks everything down from the Bible. It takes, like, the Bible on one side. Like, it's a great book if you're sober, if you want to read the Bible. But it's like one side has the scripture, and then on the other side it translates it into like more layman's terms but like also applies it, like had a lesson in there that would apply it to like something to do with recovery. I think it's called the Recovery Bible. Actually, let me look it up and see. Mine's in the basement with all my recovery. I have all my recovery books down in the basement. Well, the ones I use, I have in the kitchen over there. But like the stuff that I don't use regularly, I think it's called the Recovery Bible. It's like blue and green or something. Let's see if this is it, if I remember it correctly. His blue and green. How did I ever remember that? That is crazy. Oh no, this is the Life Recovery Bible. The Recovery Bible. Maybe this is it. Yeah, it is. Addiction Bible tied to 12 steps of recovery for helps. Yeah, it's green and blue. How did I know? I don't know. So I've got it downstairs and I see it every time I go down the basement. But anyway, I've got all my mom's stuff down there too, all her recovery stuff. But I started reading all these books. I remember I read a lot about like Judaism and mysticism and things like that, and the Kabbalah. I read a lot about a lot of different world religions. I think some things I didn't even understand. And not even just world religions. I think when I started looking at like philosophical concepts of like love and compassion and understanding was when things started changing for me. When it wasn't so much about this like being that ruled things, but more of like, I remember one time talking to my mom years after I got sober, but still in a spiritual journey. And I said something about I was praying for something. I think it was like a relationship to work or something. And she said, oh, honey, she's like, that's not what we pray for. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, I mean, you can. She's like, you can pray for anything. You can pray for, money and whatever. She's like, but that's not really how, like, God works in our lives. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, who are you to tell me? I'm going to believe what I want to believe. Second of all, what do you mean? And she said, well, the things we pray for, and this profoundly changed the way that I looked at spiritual beliefs. She said we pray for things like forgiveness, understanding, compassion, understanding to understand a situation. Maybe this is a situation that's meant for us. Forgiveness and forgiving the other person for what they did or ourselves. Compassion for the other person, Those are the things that we pray for to work us through these situations. It's not necessarily about fix this situation, That's not really, she's like, God's not like a wish granter. That's not how it works. And I think like today I know that so well, obviously from so many things in my life, but I think also, like I've shared this example so many times, it's like, lessons in disguise. It's like, or blessings in disguise, but really lessons in disguise. It's like, there have been times in my life where I've been like really worried financially about money, and I'll be like, like I have no money to like do this or do that with. And then it's like, I'm like, God, please help me with money. And then the next day I get a bill in the mail that I didn't expect. And I'm like, what the F? Like, seriously, God? I talk to God this way. And I'm like, seriously, God? And then it's like, what am I supposed to do with this bill? And I'm shifting things around and I get it figured out. I mean, not today so much, but I'm, in my past. And I get it figured out. And then, but what it made me do in that moment was realize that, like, this was back in the day, like when I was paying off the debt and Tanya and I were going to, the Meijer and the Walmart and stuff like that every night. And I would I'd be with her and I'd be like, well, I don't have the money to spend, so I can't now. Taught me the differences between wants and needs, I talked about that on here before. Or I'd be like, well, maybe I don't need these things. And so what it really taught me was financial stability. That bill, I'm not saying God sent that bill, but that bill coming into my life at the time that I didn't have a lot of money taught me you can make it through difficult times. First of all, I'm stronger than I think. And number 3, that maybe you have more money now because of that lesson that you learned then. It's on God's time, not mine. So, there was a lot that I think I learned through all of that. But anyway, I remember her saying, like, take what you like and leave the rest. And that was like this like opening door of like, take what you relate to. For me, it's always been more about concepts of like forgiveness, compassion, love, kindness, those kinds of things, of acting that way. But anyway, there have been periods in my life where I have, when I first got sober, it was very much like get on your knees and say, help in the morning. This is what people will say in meetings, like put your shoes underneath the bed when you go to sleep at night. When you're putting your shoes under the bed, get down on your knees and say thank you at the end of the day, that you made it through another day sober and alive. In the morning, when you pull your shoes out, get down on your knees and say, and the reason why people say get down on your knees, it's not a religious thing, it's a humility thing. It's humbling yourself to a higher power. That's what I was taught. I don't pray on my knees today. I don't find the need to. That's just me. I know a lot of people do. I have a lot of friends of mine that do. I don't feel the need to. If I do, there are times that I do, then I do. Sometimes it makes me feel closer to God. Sometimes I think it doesn't matter. I talk to God in the shower. I talk to God standing outside. I talk to God sitting in a chair, I think God hears me when I'm talking. So, but there have been periods in my life where it was that simple, but over time it hasn't been. And I think like after I came back into going to meetings, my husband's an atheist. Like we talk a lot about spirituality, but like in more of like conceptual ways. And he was so supportive of me. I can remember when I first came into meetings, so I have a friend of mine that shares a story about his embarrassment of getting down on his knees and praying and like, all this kind of stuff that he did. And I can remember after that, there was probably a good year straight after going back to meetings, 2 years maybe, that every morning I would get down on my knees in the bedroom and I would pray. And before I would come up to the bedroom at night, I would get on the stairs, on the stairs. The dogs would be like in front of me and they would just kind of be like sitting there looking at me, and I would say my prayer sitting there on the stairs. And it really focused me for a long time. If I ever felt like I needed to go back to that, there's no shame, I would. I just don't feel like my connection with my higher power is there. Like I feel, like I said, like God hears me where I'm at. But if I needed to, I would. I feel humbled in my prayer, or I would do that. So anyway, I can remember that's actually kind of a sweet moment. I remember like the dogs just being there, like it's Pee-Pee and Tucker mostly. Boo was upstairs, Pee-Pee and Tucker be like, "What's Dad doing on the stairs?" And I can remember there are times too that like this is how my husband was so supportive of me. I mean, he's not a believer in that stuff, But I'd be going through something, he'd be like, "Do you need to pray on it? Like, why don't you pray?" So yeah. Well, that was a long story. Talking about pray. Oh, so last night when I'm sitting in the chair, you know, I was like, it's been like a couple nights. I've been like, God, I don't want to go. I don't want to go and pray tonight. But then after I do, I always feel much better, you know. It's been a 30-year journey, longer than that probably, you know. Of figuring out this, you know, spiritual connection I have and what it means to me. I think it's also taught me to have respect for other people's spiritual beliefs, as long as their spiritual beliefs don't hurt other people, is how I feel. People get very confused when I say that. Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, what I mean by that is, if somebody is going to spit hate and vitriol at somebody else out of the name of religion, I can't get behind that. That's what I mean. I just can't, you know? So, or cause more harm in people's lives and things like that. But I think a lot of people hide behind religion and things like that. You know what? I never heard it start raining. Maybe it's more of a light rain, but it looked like thunderstorms. Oh, so anyway, I was going to look for this comment. Wasn't I? I was going to look for this comment about me talking about books so much. As soon as I read it, I was like, she's right. I am talking a lot about books on here. I was doing it with TV shows, and now I'm doing it with books. Let me see. I think it was last night that I read it, so I'm going to have to go like way back. I mean, hold on a second. Kara said, have you seen a documentary called Burden of Proof? It's really good. I watched it all dang day. I feel like I have. Is it about a person who his sister was missing? Burden of Proof. Why am I thinking that that's what it is? I'll tell you once I look. Yeah, his sister was missing, and then years later, he goes back to find it out. Psychological thriller and true crime documentary miniseries. Yeah, that was good. It's on Max. Was it 5 parts, 3 parts? I love that. I want another. I need a good true crime to watch tonight. That's what I need. Okay, let's get back to the comments. I wanted to see. Oh my God, Kristen. Okay, so I saw this comment last night too. Kristen said I was talking about like Kokomo being like Chrysler and Delco last night. She said only Chrysler is in Kokomo now. Delphi Delco closed a few years ago. They kept renaming Delco every few years. LOL, my dad retired from there. He was the last few that worked there. I did not know that Delco closed. Kristen, are you in Indianapolis or Indiana? Oh my God, I said the other day, if you're in Indiana, let me know in the comment section below. Because it'd be kind of fun to know how many people from Indiana like watch my vlog and stuff like that. I did not know that Delco closed, but I will tell you what's interesting about that is back in the day, so when I worked in treatment, Howard County, which is Kokomo, was like one of the counties that like I specifically worked with. All the probation officers, the judges and stuff from there. So anyway, I can remember that like people that worked at Chrysler, they would get, it was called like 3/4 pay off. And so they would lay people off. If I remember this correctly, it was like 6 months to 18 months, and they would make literally 3/4 of what they were making before to not work at all, and then would come back and have their job because they were doing layoffs, and so they would cut people's pay to not have them there. I mean, it was crazy. They were doing like hiring freezes and things like that. And I can remember these people just be like, it led to a lot of addiction in Howard County because these people were not working anymore in the factories, which factories have tons of addiction in them, by the way, if you didn't know that. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. But sad that Delco closed. I wonder if a lot of those people moved away. Michelle said, good morning, Peter. Something was brilliant. It was, Adolescence. It was written by Stephen Graham. He played the dad on the show. Yeah. Alice said, thanks for reading my comment about being lonely. I feel so seen. Oh, that made me so happy. I think there are moments in life when we all need to feel seen, you know? And I didn't even realize I was doing that by reading your comment. So thank you so much for that. Where is the comment? Matt said, when you get back from your walks, do you shower? Am I the only one that does the, I don't know what, the L? I always shower when I get, well, I mean, not like that second, but I do. I actually talk about it on my vlogs too. I say, I showered and then I came back. Or I took a walk, I showered, and then I put on comfy clothes. I think I say that in almost every vlog. But anyway, but you asked an interesting question. You said, if you could go back and live back then, what does the L also? If you could go back and live back then, would you live back then excluding sobriety in the bullying, or would you continue to live in the now? Like, okay, if I could go back and take away the bullying and be who I am now, I mean, that's a really hard question. It's a really good question. I think, you know, the easy question is, the easy answer to that, I think, to say is, no, I wouldn't go. I would absolutely go through the bullying because the bullying made me who I am today. I think that the camera stopped. Because I don't know where it stopped, but anyway, it'd be easy answer to say, I wouldn't take away the bullying because the bullying is it made me who I am today. I think that's a courageous answer. I don't know that's necessary. I don't know it's that black and white for me. I think that the bullying was so ongoing for so long and so consistently that I think it led to if I've experienced PTSD like my therapists have suggested, I think it led to a lot of that. I think I could have learned those lessons from a lot less than what I went through. I don't know that I had to go through it to the extent that I did today. I think social media, if it existed back then, I don't know that I would have made it out alive. I honestly don't. And so I was such an easy target as like the only gay kid that anybody was calling gay in school that I think it just would have been horrendous if like social media was around. I don't even know, like, or maybe social media would have been like, you know, I don't know. I mean, we were listening to cassettes and, you know, CDs at that time. There was no like out celebrities or even people supporting us like Lady Gaga, you know, like I don't know who I would have looked up to. I didn't look up to anybody. So I don't know. No, I think a lot of the bullying that I went through taught me a lot about who I am today, but I don't know that I needed to experience it on the level that I did. Does that make sense? So I think it's a great question though. Definitely, to go back with the sobriety, you know, it's interesting that you say excluding the sobriety because I do ask myself this question a lot. Not a lot, but I think more I used to back in the day than I do now. But like, what would have happened if I'd never been an addict or an alcoholic? I think, you know, a lot of like, the lessons that I've learned, the foundation is my recovery. And so me learning to work through my social anxiety, I would never have been able to do that if I didn't have sobriety first or had have healthy relationships and things like that. Any lesson I've learned in my life, the foundation has been sobriety first. So I think it's a difficult question. I would definitely not take away my experiences with addiction and sobriety. I wouldn't take it away at all. But I have asked myself, like, what would it have been like if I hadn't been an addict and an alcoholic and I had gone to a normal college, like, or if I had gone to fashion school, would I have ended up being like a fashion designer or, you know, like, would I have had like a group of really, you know, who knows what my life would have looked like? I have no idea, you know, different circumstances. It's like, you know, like Prince of Tides when she says, or he says when he's driving back over, you know, for every man there are two lives. I mean, I think it's that whole idea of like, you know, what is it called? Spinning doors or whatever. It's like every choice you make leads to a different lifestyle. I mean, there's whole movies that have been made. Blake Crouch wrote a whole book about that. I would definitely not take away my sobriety. I mean, my sobriety is the foundation. I wouldn't be married to my husband today. I wouldn't have what I have. I don't think I would have maneuvered all the different situations in my life. I wouldn't even be on YouTube if I wasn't sober. But I don't know that some of the experiences I experienced while I was sober, I don't guilt myself for them anymore. I don't even feel like I'm responsible for half of them that happened to me, where people took advantage of me and did things. But I think it was, there's a lot that I've never shared on any video about things I went through back in the day. I mean, I've done inventory on it, talked about it in therapy and things like that. To me, it doesn't bother me as much today as it did then. It's actually kind of a reminder of what that period of my life was like. It's almost kind of like watching a movie about somebody else that I don't really even know anymore. I think similar to the bullying, I don't know that I had to learn those lessons on that level, if that makes sense. But Matt, thank you for those questions. Those were good questions. Okay, so Lex said, hi Peter, hey Lex. It's so great that you're I just love that when people like, they ask things like this or suggest things like that. They're so nice about it. It's sweet. She said, hi, Peter. It's so great that you're enjoying your books, but I really haven't been enjoying that it's taking up most of your vlogs recently. Listen, girl, no shame. I agree with you, okay? I mean, yesterday's was like out of control. I know you can talk about whatever you want. I'm glad you're loving it. I'm just saying, as a viewer who normally enjoys your content, it's just been a lot lately. When I read it, I was like, she's so right. I've been talking about books like so much. I've never watched her book channel, but isn't this what you should talk about over there? I enjoy hearing more about your day and story times. I'm totally fine hearing about the books you're reading, just not the whole vlog, if that makes sense. Girl, listen, I hear you loud and clear, and I agree with you, okay? It's very similar to when people say stuff about the TV shows. Like I said at the beginning of this, my life is not that exciting. You know, today was such a fun vlog for me today because I told all these stories about early sobriety. I loved this. This was fun for me today. And Lex, I hope you enjoyed more of this because this is actually more of what I do enjoy doing. I mean, I love talking about books, but it's fun telling the stories from my past and reliving life and stuff like that. But girl, no, listen, I like, do not walk on eggshells. I hear you loud and clear, and I respect you, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But what's funny is that Gina responded and said, oh boy. And then there is someone like me that could listen to Peter talk about his books the entire vlog and on his book channel. So then I'm like, what do I do with it? Well, you know what? There's going to be some days I get real excited talking about books, and there's going to be some days that I don't talk about books at all, but I'll try to make it a happy medium. You know, I make these videos because I want you guys to enjoy them. It's not because I want to talk about whatever I want to talk about and F off if you can't handle that. No, I want to make videos that people enjoy. I mean, I appreciate criticism like this, you know, and I appreciate that you said it in such a nice way. Some people aren't so nice about that, but I think you hear things nicer when people are like, listen, like, you know what? It's like if somebody said to me, you know, Peter, you're a good looking guy, but that hat needs to go. Like, I'd be like, this hat? If like 2 or 3 people said it to me, I'd be like, you know what I mean? Anyway. So thank you, Lex, for that. I appreciate it. I definitely will take that into consideration. And I know I've been talking a lot about books and TV shows lately. I love that she said in here, though, too, I just want to say, I enjoy hearing more. She didn't just say what she doesn't like. She said what she did like. And that's what I love when she said, I enjoy hearing more about your day and story times. I appreciate that. Because then it lets me know, you know, anyway. So thank you for that, Lex. Okay, so let's talk about the day, shall we? Last night, what was last night? Monday? What did I watch on TV last night? Oh, so I don't even know. I took a long nap. I don't even remember what Alex and I watched together. Something. Walked, all that kind of stuff. Walked, showered, and then took a nap. And then, what did, okay, so I knew that I like, was not going to start a new show last night because I wanted to finish reading some books. Oh, last night, that's what I did. I finished that James Patterson book. Wasn't that last night that I finished it? Where's my Goodreads? Yeah, so I finished a James Patterson book last night, The Big Bad Wolf. It was not my favorite. I mean, this is the thing. Okay, you can't skip them if you're going to read the series because important stuff happens. Like in this one, if you guys are reading them, I mean, it's the end of the month. I'm not ruining anything about it. But Christine Johnson comes back. She's Alex Cross's old girlfriend. Here I just said I wasn't going to talk about books. I'll make it quick. Okay. And then she comes back because they had a baby together, and then she left the baby. So anyway, so she comes back because she wants the baby again. It's like there's important stuff that happens in every book. So you can't like skim or skip a book because you're going to like miss out on that stuff. So the thing about this book was, I don't know what it is. Is this like in all of the James Patterson books? Or just the last? I mean, I just started listening to audiobooks, but of his, the Alex Cross ones. There's so much music in it. And like there were whole chapters that were literally in the background. You'd hear like this spy music to it. And I'm like, I can't even hear the person narrate the book because the music's so loud. So anyway, I finished that last night and then I started Tweak by Nick Sheff. And I got into that. And then, what else did I read last night? Did I tell you guys I finished the other night? I'm like finishing a book a day. Tonight I will finish Maximum Ride. I have like 48 pages left of Maximum Ride. So that's what I dedicated last night to reading. What else did I read last night? Did I finish Dead and Gone the night before? I think I did because I was like crying and stuff like that. The Dead and the Gone. When did I finish it? View book details. Does it say on here when I finished it? You finished this book on March 24th. Yeah, so I finished it late yesterday. So I finished that book on March 24th. Oh, love that book. So last night I read, and then like 4:30, what is it, 4:36, Tanya or something like that texted me, and then we ended up talking. And then when I got the phone with her, it was longer than that, because I said to her, I go, what time is it? And she said, I went to bed late last night. I thought I went to bed earlier than that. because I can't remember what time she said, but I was like, oh my God, I have to watch Ghosts. And she started laughing. I said, no, I have to watch Ghosts because it calms me down before I go to bed. Then I watched 2 episodes of Ghosts, and then the battery just went to the halfway mark. I'm going to finish this here in a second anyway. But then I watched 2 episodes of Ghosts, and then I went to bed. I love that show so much. Yeah, and then I started my day. This was a weird conversation today. I mean, not weird, but like, I didn't expect to talk about all this sobriety stuff today. I could talk about it every day. I love going down memory lane or memory road or whatever with the sobriety stuff back in the day. You know, it's like when I talk about, I can see myself in that meeting, you know, it's like, I just remember how much like just a cup of styrofoam coffee meant to me. The battery's flashing, so I'm gonna get off here. I hope that you guys are having, I don't wanna rush. I hope you guys are having a magically amazing Tuesday. If nobody else has told you this today, I love you guys. Have a peaceful, serene, calm evening. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya.